Modern Brazil has little of the overt racism that afflicts other societies. Indeed, this is a rainbow nation unlike any other. There are plenty of poor whites, but the saying goes, if you are black and rich, your name is likely to be Pelé. The first slaves from Africa set foot on Brazilian shores in the 17th century. They were transported to work on the sugar-cane plantations, and now blacks and people of mixed race make up nearly half of the population. The original white settlers were joined by a huge wave of immigrants from Europe at the end of the 19th and the start of the 20th century, as people crossed the Atlantic to make their fortune in the New World. In October 1894, on returning to Brazil from school in England, an Anglo-Brazilian called Charles Miller brought with him 2 footballs. That day is still regarded as the official birthday of football in Brazil. And Charles Miller is still revered as the father of football in Brazil.
Quando ele chegou aqui no Brasil, ninguém jogava futebol. Então o trabalho que ele teve foi exatamente o de ensinar. O de ensinar as regras do jogo, inclusive as dimensões do campo, enfim, de mostrar como se praticava o futebol.
At first, Miller had difficulty in persuading the Sao Paulo Athletic Club, where he was a member, to play the new game. But when the Sao Paulo Championship kicked off in 1902, Miller was the top scorer as his club became the first ever champions in Brazil. It wasn't until 4 years later that a league was started in Rio de Janeiro. In the shadow of the Christ statue lie some of Rio's most exclusive homes around the famous inland lagoon, the Lagoa. It is on the banks of the Lagoa that most of Rio's famous clubs have their origin. To this day, Flamengo, Vasco and Botafogo all include rowing club in their names. A feature in the early years of football in Rio and Sao Paulo were the tours by European teams, the most famous of which was in 1910 by the great Corinthians side from England. It was such a success that a team was founded in Sao Paulo named in honour of the Corinthians. This unique footage from their 1913 tour game against a Rio 11 led by the Englishman Harry Welfare is the first footage that exists of Brazilian football. In the early years of the 20th century, though, football remained very much a pastime for the rich whites.
As primeiras fotografias dos jogos de futebol mostram os torcedores que nós chamamos, que são os assistentes, os que vão às arquibancadas, as mulheres vestidas como se fossem a uma festa, chapéu. Os homens também, de gravata. Se usava muito um chapéu de palha aqui no Brasil, que chamavam palheta. E então se vê que os adeptos do futebol iam muito bem vestidos ao campo. Não havia a frequência do povo, só mesmo da elite.
But times were changing. Arthur Friedenreich, seen here in the centre of the front row, had a German father and an Afro-Brazilian mother. As a mixed-race player, he scored 1,329 goals, more than anyone else in the history of football. In 1925, his club, Paulistano, were the first Brazilian team to tour Europe, seen here in a match against the French 11 from that tour. In those days, the races were divided, but Friedenreich's status as the major star of Brazilian football helped convince Vasco da Gama in Rio to drop their barriers against black players, and in 1923 they won the Rio State Championship, thanks to their black contingent. It was revolutionary, and it caused an uproar.
Foi o primeiro clube a colocar negros, a aceitar negros jogando. Isso aí deu um escândalo. Os outros não queriam jogar com ele. Você vê que problema se viveu, um problema racista, lamentavelmente. E ninguém sabia que justamente o tempero dado pelo negro ao nosso futebol é que fez o nosso futebol ser o que é.